Greetings, everyone. P. Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of Ranking the Albums. Today, in the co-captain's chair, you know who he is. Mr. George Lamie is in the house. What's going on, my friend?
What's up, dude?
Got his King Diamond shirt ready to go. You know what? I'm a total epic fail on my point. I was like, I would grab this creator shirt. I'm like, I've got like 3 Merciful Fate shirts. I should have worn one of them. I got the olds. It's too fucking early, you know. It's like I did not plan that one out good. So we are, of course, going to rank the albums of King Diamond. A long time coming. I will have to say, over the last year, this is probably the band that has been asked for the most. I get it all the time. When are you going to rank King Diamond? Do you not like King Diamond? I know you like Merciful Fate. When are you going to rank King Diamond? Well, here we are. So we've got a dozen albums. And we're going to rank them as we like them. As George and I have been kind of chatting all week long, this was a very, very hard assignment for me because I was very into the King Diamond, whether you want to call it a solo catalog or just the band, whatever, however you want to call it. But I kind of checked out of King's stuff like in the early 90s. So I've been basically playing catch up on all the latter stuff in recent weeks leading up to this. And I find, I was saying this to George yesterday. I said, I want to talk about it more on the air. I've been a massive Merciful Fate fan for a long, long time. I find that there's some really enjoyable albums in this catalog, but overall, I'm left thinking that I really prefer the Merciful Fate catalog. And to me, there's, other than the voice, there's distinct differences in Merciful Fate music and King Diamond music to my ears. And again, I'll kind of talk about it as we go through here today. I find, I don't know what it is. I find from album to album to album in Merciful Fate's catalog, there's a lot of differences. A lot of each album is unique on its own. I find, like, I don't know what it is. I find a lot of these albums, they're bogged down in these conceptual themes. And I find a lot of the albums sound very, very similar to me. And I have a hard time distinguishing from them, especially after like the first 4 or 5 or so. I don't know how you feel. How do you feel when you look at the two bands side by side?
I think what you're hearing, and I hear it too, is he's got a co-collaborator in both bands pretty much. And Hank Sherman's style is more distinctive from King Diamond than Andy LaRocque's style is. Yeah. Andy LaRocque, his writing is not that far off from King, so that band tends to be more one voice, and Merciful Fate tends to have 2 parts to it. I think that's what
and I think too there's and again, maybe it's down to the guitar players. You could be right. I mean, Andy's fantastic. I love him. I think he's great. Yeah. For me, I find that the music of Merciful Fate to be a little bit, especially when it comes to the riffs and the arrangements, to be a little bit more complex, a little bit more proggy in nature. It's still metal, it's still heavy. Whereas I find this music is more kind of chugga riff bass with the kind of gothic keyboards and this whole, we're telling a story with every album. Whereas that's not usually the case with Merciful Fate. I don't know. I really don't understand what I'm hearing that's so different, because the voice is the same. Yeah. But I think because there just seems to be a different mantra in this band, whereas they're trying to get some kind of point across, and the way the albums are arranged is very much like you're watching a movie, right? Or you're listening to a movie, like a movie being told, right? That sort of thing. And maybe that's it. Maybe it's just with every album pretty much being like this full-blown concept album, it's not so much a collection of songs as it is a big whole hour-long storyline every time out. Maybe that's it. I don't know. That being said, there's some terrific stuff here. So I don't want folks to think that I'm down on the King Diamond catalog, because I'm not. Going through this exercise made me once again realize probably why I stopped following the King Diamond catalog at a certain point, because I wasn't getting out of it what I really love about the Merciful Fate catalog. I don't really know. It's kind of hard to say. So
you mentioned 2 keyboards. There's definitely more keyboards in this.
Which I don't have an issue with. I mean, you know me, I love keyboards. I don't have an issue with that.
And then you're a big guitar guy. So there's a lot of leads in this band. They
Yes.
they throw solos in willy-nilly, man. There's guitar solos all over the place, and the styles are way different from the Merciful Fate guys. Those guys are rooted in old 70s stuff. Denner sounds like um,
Schenker.
Schenker, yeah. And these guys are more high tech. They're more, and they got into that neoclassical phase in the late 80s that became very obvious.
Yeah.
And it's a totally different animal. You like both, I'm sure, but maybe you prefer the Merciful Fate
Well,
guys.
in saying that, I think one of the things I like the most about this band are the guitar solos. I think are terrific. I have no.
Yeah.
I think it's the riffs, to be honest with you. I find that the riffs in this band at times are very, very basic. It's kind of this whole chugga chugga thing, which don't get me wrong, I'm a metal guy. I love that stuff, but I just find that the arrangements on the Merciful Fate stuff is just a little bit more complex, a little bit more interesting to my ears, and I think that's what it's got to be. That it's got to be the way the riffs are crafted. I think because I love the solos in both bands because I don't think anybody would argue that you don't get top-notch virtuoso soloing from whoever's in Merciful Fate or whoever's in King Diamond. That to me, that's not an issue at all. I love the solos. In fact, you'll hear me talk quite a bit today when we're going through these albums. I will regularly talk about how great the solos are and the blistering leads and all this kind of stuff, but sometimes I felt like with some of these albums I struggle to talk about anything else, especially on the latter part, so not all of them, but so we'll see. It'll be an interesting I think concept here to go through this and just see what we think about all these albums. So my guess is our top ones won't be all that different. We'll see how they're arranged, but all right, so we got a dozen. So do we want to do two at a time, I guess?
Okay.
Sounds good. All right, George, what do you got for 12 and 11?
Number 12 is The Graveyard, 1996. I used to have this, but I never really connected with it. I think this one is too long. This one's over an hour.
Yeah.
There's too many slow tunes. There's actually some kind of doomy stuff on here, which I don't have a problem with that genre, but I don't think King Diamond does it very well. And this is coming off the it's the second album coming off the layoff after they left Road Racer and got Merciful Fate back together. There's these dudes that he got from the Dallas area. He had relocated to Dallas, and he's got these dudes on here that were local musicians there. They are not up to King Diamond power to me, especially the drummer, Darren Anthony. He ain't it. He's not the right guy. So that plays into it for me. He's boring. This album, a little boring for me. So that's my number 12. And number 11 is House of God from 2000. I had high hopes for this when it came out because there's a lot of personnel changes in this band. In this one, they added David Harbour from the Chastain Band on bass, one of my favorite metal bass players. And he sounds good on here, but I don't know, they don't really cut him loose. And Glenn Drover is the second guitar player on this. He's a great guitar player. I know you know that.
Yeah.
The guy's a great player. Unfortunately, also from the Chastain Band, they got Jean-Luc Hebert on drums. He's on 2 records. He sounded a lot better on Voodoo. This album, he sounds like he phoned it in. Coming from the drum standpoint, it's one of the things I appreciate about the King Diamond Band and Merciful Fate is the drumming is generally never boring, but it's boring here. I just feel like the songs are lackluster on this album. The concept, I'm sure we're both going to say we don't really care that much about the lyrical concepts, but definitely for this one, I couldn't even tell you. I think it got something to do with the Dan Brown theory of Jesus's point of origin or whatever. But yeah, this album, again, I used to own it. I sold it at some point. I did a big purge, and this one had to go because it's not up to par for me.
I hear you. Yeah, I don't own it either, and yeah, I'll get to that in a second. All right, so I'm going to go my number 12 is going to be "Give Me Your Soul, Please," which is the most recent 2007 12th album. And this was the last album with Hal Patino, who's kind of come and gone from this band a few times. I guess he was fired. I don't know what the reason was here, but I'm assuming this will probably be his last go around with King. But you got, the really great tandem of Mike Weed and Andy LaRocque on guitars, which I think those guys kill it. They're great. Matt Thompson on drums. This is again another, the issue, there's so many of these deep concept stories on all these albums, and I'm not much of a lyric guy, so I'll read into this a little bit just because I love horror and stuff, but sometimes it just gets a little too crazy. But this one is it's a concept album about a father who kills his two children, which is like, all right, whatever. I think this is, I think even the albums that are at the bottom of my list, they're solid. The way I explain some of these records is they're solid, but they're unspectacular. Like Never Ending Hiss is a really cool song. It's got some great soloing. I really like Black of Night, which is a pretty strong tune. Mirror Mirror is pretty damn catchy. He occasionally King will do these kind of catchy songs, which I kind of dig. And I think The Cellar is another good one. It's got these kind of really twin guitar passages in there. It's pretty chugging. It's kind of, good, memorable song, as is Give Me Your Soul. I think it's all pretty good. I'm not really wowed by any of it. And I think that's my issue with the bottom half of my ranking here, is I'm not really wowed by any of these albums. They're good. They're not quite knocking me on my ass, which, I really want from King Diamond in general, regardless of the band. My number 11 is House of God. So the ninth album from 2000. I agree. I think I love Glenn Joe. I think he's a great guitar player. Too bad he didn't stick around here long enough. Another concept album, obviously, like we talked about. Yeah, this is weird because it's all about this house of God. Like Jesus never died way back then, and he just they relocated him and somewhere in France, and this tells the story of all these strange goings on that happened. I don't know. I don't understand it. I don't pretend to understand it. Whatever. Maybe someone a little smarter than us can kind of explain this in the comments below. But whatever. I don't try to spend too much time getting into what these albums are supposed to be all about. But that being said, The Trees Have Eyes is really good. I think Follow the Wolf is a good song. I think that the guitar playing between these two guys, between Andy and Glenn, is really good throughout this whole album. Title track is good and melodic. Black Devils, just good, solid chugga King Diamond. Just a Shadow of the Pack, Catacomb, all good metal songs. I think that some of the riffing is pretty good. The solos are excellent. But again, I don't find anything like overly exceptional here, but it's all very decent and enjoyable. But it's like if I were to recommend, 5 King Diamond albums to someone who's never listened to King Diamond, this would not be one of them. But it's like something that's like, check this out after you've checked out all the really, really good stuff. It's fine for what it is. It's not great, though. So those are my 12 and 11.
My number 10 is The Spider's Lullaby, 1995. This is the first album after the 5-year break. They leave Road Racer. Merciful Fate gets back together. They do 2 albums. And then I guess it's, for whatever reason, it's King Diamond time again. And like I said, they get these 3 guys from Dallas. Guitar player Herb Simonson, he's good. The bass player Chris Estes is good. And he seems to be like maybe some kind of a bit of a collaborator with King at some point. I know on Voodoo, he lets him write, and he's got a co-production credit. So he obviously had some kind of connection with that guy. This album, though, when it came out, I liked it a lot. I remember that was I rated it pretty highly then, but at some point I wasn't as enamored with it. Light's my favorite track. That's a King tune. Really good song. That's the one's real standout from here. I also like From the Other Side, the opener. But in general, this is like one of the ones that you're talking about where, yeah, it's good. I can see a lot of people maybe liking it, but for me, it's one of the lower ones.
It's funny, when I was out doing, I always like to, after I put together my ranking, I go and online and I start looking at what other sites and stuff are doing. This one ranks pretty low for a lot of them, which, I mean, I get. I think there's probably 4 or 5 albums in this catalog that are kind of like all about the same in terms of overall quality. And this is one of them. But yeah, it's got some standout tunes, and some of it's just kind of like it's okay, it's good, you know.
I think there might have been budget issues in the '90s too, because a lot of these records sound a little thin, and
Yeah.
this is definitely one of those. Uh, so where am I at? 9?
Yeah.
Yeah, my number 9 is "Give Me Your Soul, Please." This actually fared better for me for this revisit than I had thought, because my initial thoughts were that this was completely lackluster, but I went through it and I actually do like quite a bit of this. I would. This is an album that I would recommend, but not before everything else, obviously. But it's a solid record. The third one with the 2000s group, we'll call them. That's the new guys that he got. All those guys are good. Mike Weed, I really like. He's a real tasty player, good technique. Matt Thompson is a good drummer. He's from Shaolin Death Squad also. Definitely a good drummer. So you got the right players, but the songs are just good. There's no, like, could I tell you what my favorite song is? No, because it's like kind of an amalgamous mess of just solid songs, you know. There's no, oh man, I can't wait you're looking at the track list, you're like, oh, I can't wait for that one to come up. There's no song like that. So for that reason, I got it down at number 9.
There's no Charon in any of these albums.
No. There's a lack of distinction here.
Yes.
Good, but you know.
Yeah. Yeah. That sums it up right there. That's yep. All right, my number 10 is the Graveyard from 1996, 7th album. Hold on one second here. My notes just all of a sudden refreshed. Gotta love when
He loves his purples and blues, doesn't he?
he does. Yeah, I mean, this is just yeah, I mean, a cool enough cover, but it's kind of generic looking, I think, right?
Yeah.
For the most part. But
That
you know,
screams, but
yeah, for sure. For sure. And of course, this came out on so this was originally on Massacre, right? I know Metal Blade reissued it, but I think this originally came out on Massacre Records. So, you know, same lineup as on the Spider's Lullaby. I think I don't know about you, George. I think the production is kind of harsh on this album.
yeah.
Right? To me, it just, that's like the first thing I hear. And I've read some people who say that they love the production on this album. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't quite agree with that. But I mean, some of the songs are pretty good. Black Hill Sanitarium, you know, it's got these real jagged, kind of harsh guitar sounds. And I think King is really, really high up in the mix on this album. I think a lot of these albums work from a production standpoint because you got the guitars and King's voice pretty much on even keel, because that's really what you want to hear in this band. But I hear the guitars seem to be kind of a little buried and really kind of just, I don't know, just really harsh sounding on this album, which is just kind of strange. Waiting is, I think, a really cool headbanger. It's got some really good lead guitar. Heads on the Wall, that's got this kind of brooding, almost doomy nature to it, which is kind of weird. I agree with you. I think that, you know, every now and then King dips into some kind of doom style stuff, which is a little strange for him, but sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I don't much like I'm Not a Stranger. Digging Graves is kind of plodding. Meet Me at Midnight, I think that's a pretty memorable tune. But again, the kind of the weird boxy production is just kind of strange. Trick or Treat isn't bad. And I agree with you. I think it's a way too long album. I think any King Diamond album needs to be 45 to 50 minutes tops. 60 plus minutes, just a little bit too much for me. But yeah, it's okay. It's good. Some good songs. Production's kind of weird, but I don't hate it. But it's my number 10. And my number 9, I'm going to go with Spider's Lullaby from 95. You know, we got Herb Simonson, Chris Estes, Darren Anthony, you know, this brand new band here. This is weird because this is not a full-blown concept album, although part of it is conceptual, right? So you have like 4 or 5 tunes that aren't part of the concept, and then you get the concept, which is kind of strange. I think From the Other Side, great opener. It's got good riffs, nice use of organ. I like that. Killer is good. Dreams, another good one. You got lots of keys on Midnight, which is kind of like this moody, kind of dirgy type thing. 6 Feet Under works really well for me. I like the title track. It's kind of creepy, Room 17, that's pretty good, kind of epic sounding. I think it's pretty solid, maybe a little unfocused at times. I guess when you're used to King Diamond and crew putting out these very kind of focused albums that are telling a story, when you hear something that's not, then you say, okay, well, this is kind of strange because it seems unfocused. So I don't know, whatever. But I think it's good. I think it's solid, and another wacky album cover. But yeah, that's my number 9.
Yeah, that's a reissue. The original was even more drab than that. Just a version of that, but real drab.
Yeah.
My number 8 is Abigail 2. At this point, I'm starting to wonder why anybody puts out a sequel to a really celebrated album, because the fans do not give it a fair shake. I'm thinking, as I'm listening to this and thinking about and reading the reviews of people savaging it, this is the lowest rated one on Rate Your Music. And I'm seeing people savage it on there. And I'm thinking about other ones like Land of the Free 2 and Operation Mindcrime 2 and Keeper of the Seven Keys 3. And nobody likes any of those albums. It's like, what is the upside to doing a sequel to a well-received album? I don't think there is one. Not to say this is great, but it's good. I like it, I don't like it as much as I did when it came out. I loved this when it came out, but I do still like it. This is the first album with the 2000s crew, basically, the Mike Weed and Matt Thompson. Their upgrades. I remember seeing at the time an interview with King. They asked him why now for Abigail 2, and he said, I got the right players this time, and I got more of a budget, which I don't know that I hear that. I don't think this sounds that much better than House of God production-wise, but whatever it is, there are some bangers here. The Storm, Mansion in Sorrow, that will remind you of Mansion in Darkness from the original. Definitely Spirits, that's a really good one. There's a bunch of The Crypt. I mean, there's a bunch of good tunes on here. If you're one of those people that expects because it's the sequel, it's going to be as good as Abigail, well, no, it's not. It's not going to be that. It never is. Even if it was, you probably wouldn't take it as that. But for me, it's a worthwhile record.
I have to wonder if a lot of people just kind of shit on it just because they're like, it's not as good as the first one. Because I think it's never, you're right, it's never going to be, but on its own, it's really not that bad. If it was not called Abigail 2, most people are like, oh, this is a pretty good album, right?
Yep. Number 7 is Voodoo. It's kind of surprising because, I mean, I remembered I liked it a lot. I wore this out in 98, but it's in that period where, I mean, to me, it's the standout of the 90s albums. It's in that period, those albums with the Dallas guys, they're not up to par of the rest of his career, but this one almost is. Concept is pretty cool, like a voodoo house in Louisiana. It's like a spooky story about that. It's actually pretty interesting. Cool cover. Yeah. But yeah, some of the songs on here are a little bit revitalized. You got Loa House. I think that's an Andy tune. That's really good. Life After Death. The Secret is a co-write with Estes. That's good. Basically, almost all this is good. You got a double closer at the end with these interlude pieces that, this is why I get it irritated with concept albums, because you start shoehorning in these interludes to further the story, and musically that doesn't work. I don't want a 1.5 minute track of a creepy harpsichord and King cackling in the background. Save all that stuff,
Yeah, I agree 100%. Yep.
But for the most part, I find this to be a pretty good listen, and just that cover is cool.
Now, I should have looked it up, but if I remember correctly, didn't the artist who did this also do covers for Emperor and Amorphous? Isn't this the same guy who did like Thousand Lakes and then The Night Side Eclipse? I don't know. It looks like it, but I know the person who did the cover has done a lot of other things, so I'm wondering if it's the same person. I'll have to look that up.
Christian Walden, looks like. I don't know. But yeah, it's cool. I like the album. definitely if you're going to jump on a 90s album from King Diamond, give one a try. I think it's this one.
Yeah, I would agree. And I'm looking this up right now because I've got piqued my curiosity about the cover. Let's see here. Let's see. He has also done covers for Amorphous. Okay. Bathory. Dark Funeral, Dark Tranquility, a lot of black metal stuff. Dissection, okay, also did, yeah, so it's the same guy. Edge of Sanity, Emperor, yeah, so it is the same guy. He's got a style, and he uses like blacks and blues very similarly on all of his album covers. So yeah, this guy, he's got lots and lots of history with so many album covers on the black metal scene. So yeah, I kind of thought that was him. He's got a certain style which is very distinctive. So
and the blue thing's right up King's alley.
Oh yeah, for sure. All right. Well, speaking of voodoo, that's my number 8th album. I like this. I kind of think the concept is pretty cool and easy to get into on this album, about this whole thing about the Lafayette's family, right? Living down in Mississippi and the whole voodoo thing, and kind of cool. I think LOA House is a great tune that like kind of crushes right out of the gate. Title track is terrific. A Secret is another really, really strong song. I love the lead guitars on Salem. The Exorcist is big and epic. I think it's really solid. I agree with you get some of these interludes and things like that, which I can kind of give or take at times, but I think overall this one works pretty damn well. So it's really cool. My number 8.
We should probably mention too that the title track has a guest solo from Dimebag.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Yep.
It's cool.
Yeah. Good. All right, my number 7 is Abigail 2, The Revenge, 2002. I think Mike Weed just kind of fits like a glove right in here, right? He just kind of slots in, and you got Hal Patino coming back on bass. I think this is pretty good. I don't think it deserves all the crap that it gets. I think as a sequel, like I said, you take off the Abigail 2 name on this and you call it something else, I don't think anybody have an issue with it. It's just it doesn't quite live up to the greatness, obviously, of that. But there's some good stuff on here. Spare This Life, I think, is really cool way to kind of start the album. I normally am not big on these intro songs, but I think here this kind of sets the stage. It's really creepy and unsettling, kind of sets the stage for what's to come, which I don't really mind too much. The Storm, big headbanger. I like how King is just, he's obviously playing up to it a bit, but he's doing his like Man of 1,000 Voices throughout this album because he's playing all these parts, and I think it really works really well. What else? Mansion and Sorrow, got that kind of galloping thing going on, lots of blazing guitars like that. Slippery Stairs is excellent. The Crypt is also really good, and I think the Crypt has some really, really interesting guitar interplay. You can see right off the bat these two dudes are working really, really well together. A Broken Glass is kind of anthemic, memorable. I like that. Mommy's kind of doomy. I don't really mind it too much here. Like I said, it's not the classic that the original Abigail was at all, but I still think it's very enjoyable and pretty good and deserves better from the fans than it gets. So that's my number 7.
I don't know for you. For me, this area starts to be where like I can recommend these pretty confidently. This is kind of where you're at too.
Yeah.
I mean, not to the level of the top stuff, but if someone said, "Should I get that?" I'd be like, "Yeah, it's good."
Everything. Yeah, I would say everything from here is very good. It's great. Yeah.
My number 6 is The Eye, 1990. This is another one that's kind of stepped up for this exercise. I was disappointed in this when it came out, just because it came out after those first 4, and they are a cut above this for sure. This for me was crushing blow when Mickey D left. So you have a controversy about the drums on this album. It's listed as Snowy Shaw. He came out and said he didn't play on it, his drum machine. And then I think somebody talked to him about it, because now his story is the same as King Diamond's story, which is he played pads on it. Listen, I know what I'm talking about. This is not Snowy Shaw. The playing, it's not. I mean, even if it's pads, that explains the sound, but it doesn't explain the playing. And the playing sounds like programmed drums. It just does. Snowy Shaw.
Snowy's a good player. Yeah, he's a good player.
Yeah. Go listen to Merciful Fate Time, which, came out just a few years later. He's really spicy, man. He's got all kinds of stuff. So he ain't doing the drums on this. But overall, it fared better with me through this time around.
Yeah, it's a solid record. Yeah.
You got the opener, Eye of the Witch. That's easily the most everlasting song from this album. It's appeared on the live album since then. It's kind of a different song for King Diamond. It's you expect a punchy opener, and it's kind of a mid-tempo. It's got a little offbeat on it. It's interesting. Burn, people like a lot more than I do. I like it, but that's another one that people love. My favorite song, Behind These Walls. I don't know how I feel about how much more keyboards are in this band than Merciful Fate, but that song, it's kind of a neoclassical riff. They were definitely influenced by that style, Andy LaRocque in particular, and that one, it works. Real melodic tune. You got a cool instrumental on here, and Insanity. Father Picard is actually a contribution from Pete Black. He's playing guitar on this one. That's good. I mean, there's very little to complain about on this. I guess Two Little Girls, I could do without that. That's kind of one of these advance the plot kind of tracks. But other than that, it's good as long as it's part of that Road Racer group, but it's not as good as those. It's still a good record.
Yeah.
My number 5 is Conspiracy. This is actually, I think, this is number 1 on Rate Your Music. I was surprised at that. People love this album. For me, it's a little front-loaded. The old vinyl first side, the first 4 tracks, incredible. At the Graves is amazing. Sleepless Nights was the single. That's really good. Lies. And then A Visit from the Dead, that's a Andy LaRocque tune. That is incredible. The soloing on this album is maybe their most impressive soloing. They're maybe, I think, taking it a little too far, trying to be competitive in 1989 Guitar Wars kind of things, because there's a lot of just blazing on this album. And it's Chris Sangarides produced the guitar playing on this album, and he's a guy that generally he brings out the best in guitar players. You've seen it throughout his career. A lot of stuff that he works on, like Painkiller and Black Tiger, are like the high point of guitar playing for those bands. So no surprise. The second side to me is a little bit of a dip. That's not major. The Wedding Dream is probably as could have been on the first side. But some of the rest of the stuff down the stretch, it's definitely a step off from the first side. So it's a little front loaded. But Mickey D is a guest on this, so he knew he was leaving. I saw an interview with him where he said really he's very technical on these 3 albums here, and he said that was never him. Like, they kept pushing him to be more technical. They were getting into the fact that they were bordering. They're not a prog metal band, but they're a progressive band, and they liked that aspect of the extension they were getting for it. So they pushed him to be more progressive, and he didn't like it. He wanted to just bash. So he ends up in Motorhead. Yeah, it worked out for him, and that's the perfect fit. So, but I love the album. I think it's maybe a little bit overrated because it's not as good as the 3 before it, but high recommendation though. It's great.
More on that a little later. All right, my number 6, ranking very high here, and it deserves it. 2003 is The Puppet Master. This is really good. Easily for me, the best of the latter period stuff. Without question. I like the concept here. Again, I'm a big horror guy, so I can appreciate where they're coming on most of these things. Mike and Andy, great on guitars on this album. You got Hal Patino, Matt Thompson on drums. Midnight's kind of a cool orchestral opener. Title track is just so memorable. Just absolutely love it. I love Magic, which is just fast paced, kind of intricate, great solos, really good song. Emerencia is kind of gloomy, but still got that chugging nature going on. Blue Eyes is so catchy. Really dig that a lot. I love the production on this album. I think the guitars sound fantastic. Really, really good. The Ritual, Blood to Walk, great track. Darkness is kind of doomy. And then, man, Christmas and The Living Dead, also really good. I think top to bottom, this album works really, really well. It sounds really good. And I think that the lineup is really clicking right here. And I think it's some of their best material of this, of the last 20 plus years. So yeah, Puppet Master, my number 6. And
you got the version with that bonus DVD?
Yes, I do.
You ever sit and watch it?
No.
It's so silly.
It's no good? Okay. It's
like a half-hour conversation with King Diamond in character talking about the album. It's not. Don't do it.
Okay. I mean, a lot of times when you get these special editions with these bonus DVDs with like documentaries and shit, I rarely play them. Sometimes it's good for a one watch, but I never got around to it, so didn't bother. All right, my number 5 is The Eye, 5th album, 1990. Last with Pete Black and Hal Patino for a while. Pretty cool concept on this, right? It's all about witches during the French Inquisition. Pretty cool. I think it's a good compact album. Just 11 songs, is not overly long. Eye of the Witch is a great song. Yeah. Which I think is one of the best songs this band has ever done. I really dig it a lot. Just really great. The Trial's got big riffs. Burn has got some killer lead guitars, very melodic. Into the Convent, Father Picard is great. Behind These Walls, got King, just sounded amazing. The Meeting, totally crushing. I don't know. There are times I was thinking that I should rank this higher, but I mean, it's in the top 5. That's really good.
Yeah,
I think it's a really great album. So that's my number 5.
Number 4 is The Puppet Master. I'm glad that I was worried you weren't going to like this one, so I'm glad you did, because you never know. Like, do people hear it or do they not hear it? And you heard it. There's a quality here that, I mean, some people I tell about it, they're like, right? They had given up on King Diamond as well, and they're kind of hard to push back into this. But man, this is killer. They do one of those 2-minute intro things, but it's actually good. It's musical. It's not just King trying to be spooky and stuff. It's really good. Like you said, the Puppet Master, the title track, and Magic, the top 2 bangers. Man, what a way to start an album. Love Blood to Walk. Totally love the closer, Living Death. I mean, it's a cool concept too, to the extent that I care about it. If you find yourself singing along, it's the stuff you're singing. Oh, that is kind of interesting, actually. But yeah, the lineup here. This is like the one that takes advantage of the fact that Mike Weed and Matt Thompson are, King Diamond level players. Mike Weed's got great solos all over this thing. Like King Diamond, that's a King Diamond standby to have great solos everywhere, and this one really, really brings it home. I don't think I have anything bad to say other than maybe So Sad is a little bit sad. I think that's the closest thing to a down track. But yeah, this album smokes. If you gave up on King Diamond, this is the one to check back in with.
Yeah, that's one that'll bring you back in for sure. Yeah.
My number 3 is Fatal Portrait. People, if you don't remember, you'd have to look, but this is a pretty quick turnaround. I mean, Merciful Fate was still touring tail end of 84. I don't know if they went into 85, but this came out in February 86. So that's a pretty quick turnaround for a band that completely disintegrated, and then you're back out with something new. I remember hearing on the radio they played before the album came out, they put out that No Presents for Christmas single. I was like, oh man, they're going to turn it around real quick. This is going to be good, They put this out. Honestly, I could scarcely believe that it was pretty close to Merciful Fate quality. Increased presence on the keyboards. You got these new guys, Mickey D, Andy LaRocque. This album still has Timmy Hansen and Michael Denner. So you got some continuation from Fate. I think this album is the only one that doesn't have that King Diamond, what would become the King Diamond style. This is closest one to Merciful Fate to me with the some of the riffing. Not all the songs, but a good half of them I think are like carryover from Merciful Fate. Again, this one's a little front loaded. The old vinyl first side, incredible. The Candle, the Jonah, the Portrait. Dressed in White is probably my favorite song. Solos all over the place. That was a Z-Rock song. Z-Rock played the crap out of that tune. And every time it came out, we were just like, yeah, this song's killer. Second side, I don't love, probably the least successful song for me is Halloween. And I know people love that song. It's kind of like a Living After Midnight situation. It's a little too basic for me. It's never going to be one of my favorites, but I don't mind it. The songs I like on the back half are Lurking in the Dark and Haunted. Incredible. And then if you got the later versions, you do get No Presents for Christmas on here and The Lake as a bonus track.
Yeah.
I mean, very little to complain about here. This is top quality King Diamond stuff. And anybody else's catalog, it could be maybe their best, but he's just got a couple others that are.
We played Death back in the day, man. When this came out, like, yeah, it's just.
Did you see the tour? I saw the tour too. It's King Diamond and Megadeth.
I saw King Diamond with Trouble, and I don't remember if it was the tail end of that tour.
I think it was Abigail.
That might have been Abigail. I don't remember. Yeah, it was probably like, I don't know, 86 or 7. I don't know. I don't even remember. I don't remember.
Yeah, they came and with Megadeth and played a 1200 club here, and King did an impromptu meet and greet next door in a record store. We got to meet him. We're kind of chuckling that he was drinking a quart of milk, very unrock star like. And then after the show, we saw the tour bus in front of the arena, so we just parked behind it and we waited. And the first guy to come off was Mickey D. So I threw out something. He made a mistake during the show, which I caught. So I threw out to him that I saw that beat you missed in that tune, and he got a good laugh out of that. And we started talking to him, and he was telling me he had very little time to work on this. They chose him like almost before they were in the studio, so that's the reason why the drummers among you will hear that this album he is not anywhere near as busy as he is on the next three, because he just didn't have time to work on it.
Makes sense.
It's you, right?
Yeah, okay. I guess there you are correct. All right. Well, my number 4 is Fatal Portrait. In going into this, I was wondering, in revisiting this catalog, I was wondering if this would be a number 1 or number 2. Because I went for a number of years where I insisted and then just felt very confident that this was my favorite King Diamond album. But in revisiting again, I was like, it's great. It's near the top, but it's not quite the top. I think the band is great. There's lots of memorable songs. You basically said everything I would say. But the Candle is terrific. The Jonah, the Portrait, Charon, I absolutely love it. It's always my favorite song on here. I love Lurking in the Dark. I actually do like Halloween quite a bit. I love the riff on Haunted. Like I said, we absolutely loved this when it came out because it was, I think we were, back then you found out about like the breaking up of bands like way after it actually happened. So I remember by the time the news got out that Merciful Fate had broken up, we were all so disappointed. But then this, like you said, this came out really quickly and we were like, and when you listen to it, it's not all that different. And you got a couple guys from the band, right? So it's like, okay, cool, whatever. But then it's, years later when we heard that Merciful Fate got back together again, then you had both bands, which I think was really cool. So I think in revisiting these, I don't think this quite matches the excellence of my number 1 and number 2, but it's fairly close. So yeah, that's my number 4. And I'm going to go with Conspiracy as my number 3. So continuation of the concept that began on them, last album with Mickey D. I think At the Graves is a terrific opener. I agree with George. I think this is a bit front loaded, but man, The stuff on the front loaded part of it is really, really good.
Yeah.
Sleepless Nights is just a rampaging riffer, and I love that mellow, the little mellow sections that they drop in there. It adds a lot of atmosphere, really, really cool. Lies has just some amazing guitar work. Visit from the Dead is just completely crushing. Wedding Dream is also really good. I think that some of the best riffs on the album, though, might be on Amon Belongs to Them. I think really, really good. Some great guitar work on there. Victimize is also pretty much a masher. So I think it's a little less orchestral than them, but maybe slightly heavier. It's you often want to, like, kind of these albums that are kind of tied together. You often want to compare them and, like, well, what do you like better about each one? But I think that Them is just a little stronger top to bottom. But there are days I'm kind of like, man, there's some stuff on here that I might even like better than anything on that album. But I just think if you're looking at it from start to finish, got to go with that one as to rank a little bit higher. So more of that's coming in a couple minutes. Back to you.
I agree. And number 2 is Them. Really, words don't describe how completely this took us over here when this came out. Coming off of Abigail, we were all just completely enamored with this band, and this comes out and it matches up.
Yeah.
Stupid intro again, but these intros just bug the crap out of me. But I get it; it's part of the concept, and people love. There's a lot of people that like this band a lot just for the lyrics. At this point, maybe I was one of them. I liked the lyrics more back then. I was into it more. But musically, this is right from the get-go. Welcome Home is a banger. Mickey D, cool-ass drum intro. The drums in that song, that's a song I learned back then. And, man, I mean, it's just fun. Like, I'm friends with Matt Thompson on Facebook, and I asked him, I'm like, do you realize what good fortune you have to get into a band where you get to play Mickey D's stuff all the time? Yeah, kind of, it's really fun. And it's like, yeah, these are really worked out drum parts. He's kind of like a heavy metal Neil Peart, because you can tell it's worked out to the nth degree, and it's so creative. Invisible Guests is one of my favorite songs, maybe my favorite.
Yeah, that's a good one.
He is a song I didn't like back then that much, but I've grown to like that song a lot. Mother's Getting Weaker is an Andy LaRoe composition. It's good. Bye Bye Missy is another favorite. Love that tune. King Diamond melodies on this album are just incredible. I mean, he's at his peak on these 80s albums. Accusation Chair is another one of my favorites. Then you got the title tracks, kind of like a 2-minute guitar solo from Andy, acoustic-y thing. That's okay. And then Twilight Symphony is almost kind of like a neoclassical thing too. They were definitely into noticing the scene was like back then. So the neoclassical thing hit them, definitely in the guitar playing and a little bit in the songwriting. And then you got another little outro thing, but the songs on here, I mean, this is a 10. I mean, it's a 5-star album all the way. I don't know anybody that likes King Diamond that doesn't love this album, up here where we've got it.
I see a lot of people rank this as the number 1.
Yeah, but I can't tell them they're wrong. It's
great. Right? Yeah.
But this one has the edge for me. At this point, probably when Fatal Portrait came out, my favorite band was Metallica. This vaulted King Diamond over Metallica for me for a couple of years. This album is near perfect. Arrival is great. A Mansion in Darkness might be my favorite song. That's just so catchy. The Family Ghost, that was the video single, really good tune. The video, kind of silly, of course. The Seventh Day of July, that's probably my least favorite song on the album, but it's good. I mean, for that to be my least favorite song on an album says a lot, because that's a really good tune. Then you got the Old Vinyl, Second Side. Omens was the first single to radio, I believe. Z-Rock used to play the crap out of that. That's a good tune. The Possession is cool, kind of proggy sections in and out. You got the title track, that's kind of a Phrygian riff. That's always a hit in metal. You get the whole Egyptian feel to something. Black Horseman, I mean, That's a lot of people's favorite tune for a good reason. It's a long, like 7.5 minutes and change. It's got the epic feel. Really, really great song. They always play that one live, and they should. And even the bonus track on this Shrine wasn't included because it's not part of the lyrical concept, but as just a throwaway track, it's a good tune, man.
Yeah.
That just goes to show how many songs that they had kicking around at that time, because that's a song, again, Z-Rock used to play that a lot too. And yeah. So I had a friend over last night having some beers, and I was telling him that, I had this number one, and I was like, I started thinking about its place on a bigger list, which would be 80s metal list. It's top 5 in all of 80s metal for me. I'm struggling to think of stuff that I like definitely better. I don't think there's anything. I mean, there's stuff up there, but is there something I can say, oh, that kicks Abigail's ass? No. I mean,
would you rank this higher than Melissa or Don't Break the Oath?
that's the thing. I don't know about. I mean, it's right there. It's like Oath is my number one fate. Can I say it's better than this? No, it's as good as this. So that's high praise. For me, those are two of probably my top 5. Master of Puppets is in there. The 2 early Rush ones are up there. But yeah, I mean, it's a masterpiece. 5 stars all the way.
Yeah, George and I are in line here. I'm going to go with them as number 2. It's a cool concept. I love a good ghost story, right?
Yeah.
King did a great job on this. I noticed that the production is a little different on this album compared to the 2 that came before it. I like the fact that the bass and drums are a little bit higher in the mix on here. You can really hear everything very, very clearly, which is nice. I mean, Welcome Home is great. The Invisible Guest, I think T is so much fun. I like when they do that kind of playful shit, which is really good. King is just killing it on Mother's Getting Weaker. Guitars are nice and complex on that one. Bye Bye Missy is just crushing. The Accusation Chair, another really strong song. I mean, you can't say anything bad about anything on this album. It works really, really well. I think, though, it works. One thing I really like about this album is it works really good as a concept album, and like it's one of those albums you have to take in as a whole. Whereas there's a lot of standouts, but yet it works so good as a whole, which I think
I agree.
Right? I mean, it's perfect for that. It's one of those albums that you're like, I have a hard time kind of pulling stuff out of it and saying, oh, go listen to this, go listen to this. You just got to go listen to the whole thing. Yeah. And it's not overly long, which I think is great. And, we haven't really talked about him a ton. But I mean, we got to give props to King Diamond himself, because I think throughout all of these albums, he's doing everything that he does so well, but he's gone to these great lengths to create these just really in-depth, horror concept albums with these really intricate storylines. And he's singing like all these different parts. And, I get some people don't, his voice can be polarizing to a lot of people. I totally get that. But I like the fact that he's just doing all this stuff, and there's really nobody like him. So even if you can't really deal with his voice, where you don't like the high falsettos or you don't like the deeper stuff, you got to give him credit for just like, man, every song he's doing all these little different things. And it's really kind of mind-boggling when you really look at it, just everything he contributes to these albums, from the lyrics and all these different voices and stuff. And, even to this day, he still sounds great. I mean, I saw Merciful Fate a couple of years ago, and I was like, holy shit, he still sounds excellent,
The amount of work he's doing, and they were putting out an album every year on the spot, like the old 70s bands. So he's doing all that work within a year. It's impressive. You might not like it. You should be impressed.
For sure. Abigail, number 1. Again, another really good concept album, good storyline. The fact it's so good they had to do a sequel to it, right? And there's just this brooding, kind of haunting atmosphere throughout the whole album, which I think really, really works. There's just some absolutely terrific guitar work on here. I mean, Arrival just kicks ass. Guitars are just screaming. I think King is here is, I think, where he really settled into this. I'm going to tell stories with these albums. And you could tell he's having the time of his life here, which is really cool. Mansion in the Darkness is so good. The Family Goes, 7th Day of July, 1777, just absolute killer. His falsetto is just off the charts on that one. Omens is good. The Possession is great. Title Track is great. Black Horseman is classic. This is to me, the absolute classic in this album, in this catalog, although Them is pretty close behind it. But yeah, if you're going to only go check out one album to start with, it's got to be this one.
And what about you? Do you have Abigail and Them right there with Oath and Melissa, or below?
A little bit below. I think they're great, but to me, Don't Break the Oath and Melissa they're in a pretty
rarefied air.
They're like in a league of their own, kind of. Yeah. But no, this is, I mean, if we were to put if we were to rank like the entire catalogs of Fate and King Diamond together, there would be those two, and probably these two would be right behind it. Shadows would probably come fairly close too, because to me, those three Fate albums are like kind of sit above the other ones. But yeah, Abigail and Them they're right up there. They're right up there. But I think the first two Merciful Fates still are pretty damn special in a different way.
And when these came out, did you guys think that they were really good production? I remember thinking at the time, we thought these are really good sounding records.
Yeah.
Looking back, I don't agree with that. I think, they're fine, but when they did the remaster campaign, I think they needed it. They needed some gussying up, because it wasn't in my memory like what we had thought of them, that they were just like, wow, these are really good production.
Because I think back then, we were all a bit younger. Maybe we didn't know as well as we do today. We were a little smarter today. Us, a greatly produced album, it's like, oh, it's got all these intricate guitars and it's got these spooky keyboards and King's doing all these vocals and the drumming is whatnot. And this is a great production, but now you listen to it today and you're kind of thinking, yeah, it's a kind of a little muddy, right? A little mid-rangey, right? It's because I think we have more sophisticated ears these days. Maybe not. Maybe some of us hear less. I don't know. But yeah, you listen to them now, they're fine. But I think we always felt that they were better back then. These were spectacularly produced albums. Yeah. I don't know how much different they were from a lot of the other stuff that was coming out at the time, but who knows? So yeah, there you have it, everybody. Ranking the albums of King Diamond, all dozen of them. If you care to take the plunge, down in the comments below, rank them as you like them. Or maybe you just want to do your top 5 or top 10, whatever you want to do. And like George and I mentioned, I think if you fell off the King Diamond wagon at some point in the 90s and just never really, listened to any of their albums post, the early 90s ones, definitely don't sleep on Puppet Master. That's probably the one that hopefully will get you excited to go check out some of these other albums, because there's some good stuff on most of them. But Puppet Master, to both of us, that's the one that stands head and shoulders of everything kind of post 2000 and on, or even arguably mid-late 90s. So
I'm going to say post the eye.
Yeah, that's quite good. I was surprised at how much I've enjoyed that one. But it's weird how there's just the difference in quality between that and the other handful of them. It's drastic.
Yeah.
So
he had everything going at that point.
Yeah, for sure. So there you have it, everybody. King Diamond. Put your opinions and picks down in the comments below, and we'll see you next week here on Ranking the Albums. Till then, visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube all together all the damn time. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and click on that notification bell so you get alerted of all of our content as it posts. And please do hit the like button before you leave. We got coming up on Tuesday in the Prague seat. We're going to be doing another album battle, another album war, featuring the first solo albums from 4 notable guys from Genesis: Steve Hackett, Peter Gabriel, Mike Rutherford, and Tony Banks. Their first solo albums, all up for battle. We're going to rank them as we like them and pick a winner. That's coming up on Tuesday. What do we got? We got the final couple days of favorite albums to listen to in the summertime, and then we start on with my favorite 31 vocalists of all time, which I will be ranking. And for each episode, I will be picking my 3 favorite albums that these singers have sang on, and then my favorite vocal performance, favorite song of all time from each of the singers. So I will be starting with pick number 31 on the first, going all the way to number 1. So everybody's got a little bit of homework to do this month. We've also got coming up this week 4 Fusion Friday. It's happening next Friday. So that's coming up, and lots more. So stay tuned for all of it. Till then, for George, Lamie, I am Pardo. See you next week on Ranking the Albums. What is next week going to be, you might ask? I don't know yet. Stay tuned. It might actually be JoJo Gunn with Grant Arthur and myself. I'm not quite sure.
I was going to say it probably won't be a band with 12 albums.
No, it will not, because I don't have the bandwidth for that after this one. But yeah, that. Although Anthrax is coming, and there's a lot of albums for that, so I'll be doing that solo. That's coming up in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, plenty to come on ranking the albums. We got lots of shows lined up, so stay tuned for that. In fact, George and Eric and myself, we got to get to Simon Phillips' Protocol. That could be doable for next week. You think that's possible, George?
Yeah, because it lays out pretty simply for me, and I take that to mean it might for somebody else too.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So why don't we just do that? All right. So Simon Phillips Protocol, that's next. So for all you Fusion fans, stay tuned for that and all sorts of other things here on the channel. Till then, have a good one, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye-bye.